Hi, my name is Francois Nordia and I am a super teacher. And with me today, I'm extremely excited to welcome an international super teacher to the Super Teachers Unite show, Dr. Reetta Niemi. Thank you very much for being on the podcast and on the Super Teachers Unite show. This is the show all about motivating, inspiring, and supporting teachers. And as you know, in the previous episodes that you've seen, we're going to try and give you as much value as we possibly can. But what I'm very excited about, this is also the first time that we officially recording for the podcast, and we've got the podcast equipment set up. So Super Teachers Unite is also now available as a podcast. And Reetta, you are our first guest with our official professional podcast setup. So thank you very much for agreeing to be on the podcast with me.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to be here.
We've got a good relationship. I came to visit you last year as part of a delegation from the University of Johannesburg.
Yes, you did.
I saw what you did in your class. And I almost want to start this off in this discussion. In South African teachers and in South Africa in general has got this obsession with Finland and specifically Finland's education system. And I think the majority of the world looks up to Finland in what they achieved in education. So I'm very privileged and honored to have seen you in action in your classroom. And when I say you're a super teacher, I just don't mean that lightly. I've seen you in action and I absolutely love the work that you do. I was also privileged that when you were in South Africa last year to be in one of your workshops that you presented to teacher trainers, and I learned so much from you. So when I got the opportunity to have you for the podcast, I just knew we have to spend time together. So thank you for that. But as you know, the structure of the show, for the first 5 to 10 minutes, I hand over to the guest. Whatever's on your heart, whatever you feel is valuable to South African teachers or to teachers in general, you share that and we'll have a conversation from there. So in true super teacher style, let's educate. Reetta, over to you.
So thank you. When I heard about the structure and when I heard about that, I should have this 5 to 10 minutes talk. So I was wondering what would be something that interests South African teachers and people working around education. And then the first thing that came to my mind was to talk about this great autonomy that we Finnish teachers that we have, and that I believe that is the key, one of the key elements why we do so well, for example, in PISA.
Mm-hmm. So please explain to us then what is meant by teacher autonomy, and to the extent that Finland goes with giving teachers autonomy.
So what do I mean by teachers autonomy? First of all, we do not have any school inspectors. Principals are not coming to our classrooms. We are trusted. So we are trusted that we follow curriculum, and we are trusted that we are the best, we are the experts knowing what works the best for the kids that we are teaching. So we are considered as experts in pedagogy, as experts knowing the best teaching methods for those kids that we know so well, that we have a chance to teach for many years. For example, I've been able to teach my own learners since they were the first graders, and now they are fifth graders. So I really know all those learners. I really know the parents, and then there's the great trust also between me and the parents, that they also know that I do my best in the classroom.
I think we have to stop there and just revisit this, because this is a very foreign concept for a South African teacher. Typically what happens with us is you have the same class, but you have them for 1 year only, and that's typically only in the foundation phase. But when you move into the intermediate phase, you've got learners in periods. So you see 30 kids or 45 kids for half an hour to 45 minutes. They go out of your class and that's replaced then by another group, where you just explained the same class you have at the moment are the kids that you had from grade 1. So for the last 5 years, you've been teaching exactly the same kids.
Yes, and I'm going to teach them one more year, and after the 6th grade they go to 7th grade, which is still elementary school, but then they will be taught by subject teachers. From 7th to 9th they will be taught by subject teachers.
And then what will you do when your group now from grade 6 moves on? Are you going to go back to teaching grade 1s?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to have a big cry when I need to say goodbye to my learners, and then I'm going to start from the very beginning. So I go back to the first graders.
So this teacher autonomy that you're speaking of, it can't go without trust. And you've been using that word quite a lot.
Yes.
You've got trust from the government, trust from the policymakers, trust from the leadership in the school,
yes.
but you also correctly mentioned that you've got trust from the parents.
Yes, yes. So we have curriculum that we have to follow. If we do not follow curriculum, then, for example, curriculum is free for all the parents, and they can check whether I'm following it. And for example, when I start the school year, I have cut the curriculum into pieces, and because I work through those projects in my classroom, so I show all the parents that how each project follows a curriculum and how the goals set in curriculum are going to be reached in every subject. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of work before the school year begins to analyze curriculum, to create those projects, and after like 2 weeks we have had school, so then we are meeting parents, we are having this special parents evening, and then I present all the parents my plans, and this is what I have planned for the school year. How do you think? How does this look like? And I've never got any nobody has ever complained. Mm-hmm. When I have opened up all those projects that I'm doing with the learners and how they relate to curriculum and the goal setting curriculum, and then I keep on sending every week a weekly message to parents what we are going to study next week, and that is how I also keep on that trust, so they can see that I have really planned my job, my teaching. First of all, they know that I have planned my teaching like as a very, very long-term period, and then it is cut into those projects. And after every week, I send them a weekly letter. Okay, next week we are in math, we are doing this one, this and this stuff, and in Finnish language we are doing this and this, and this is like whether it's science or history and social science, depending on like what is the projects dealing with. But this is how we are dealing with the project that we are working on and how it relates to either science or history.
So what I'm hearing is two very fundamental concepts. First of all is your expertise as the teacher. Mm-hmm. You have got the expertise and you put in the work in the start of the year to be creative with the curriculum.
Yes.
But then secondly, and I think this is where many teachers and many education systems fail, is that almost over communication to the parents. Is we don't do enough communication to the parents from our side and saying that this is what your kid is actually going to learn. Like, you gave me the trust in playing around with the curriculum. I don't have to follow the curriculum as word for word as we have to do in South Africa, but I have done my job and now I'm communicating to you, because you said you had a parents meeting at the start of the year where they also can have input.
Yes.
And I think that sense of community and relationship is what really makes it work.
Yeah, yeah. And then what I also do, like I arrange that kind of homeschool evening once or twice per year, and in those homeschool evenings we present with the kids all these projects that we have completed, so parents' pictures that I have taken throughout the year, and so I make my work totally transparent. And once they get to see their children excited, once they get to see the projects, once they get to see the pictures, I've never got any nobody has ever complained about my work. Okay, I have. I'm not an angel. Yes, I have also confronted conflicts, or sometimes like somebody has been unhappy from something, I'm not saying that I haven't ever confronted any conflicts, but I mean like complaining from my work, like how I work, how I plan those projects.
But even what I've experienced, that if a teacher has got open communication with parents from the start of the year, and I mean in your case from grade 1 up until now, you don't only bombard them with the negative things and contact them when the kid has done something wrong. I mean, you've got continuous communication and you focus on the positive things that the kids do, that when conflict arises, you have that platform to chat to each other. So listen, if I do something wrong, please, I want to know about it. Because as you rightly said, we're not angels all of the time.
Yes. And like, but like, I'm not really having any huge conflicts like.
So the frequency of conflicts isn't that.
So, but like, not saying that. It's like I'm like totally like conflict-free area. But.
So I've got this thing on the show. There's always a teacher. I can hear them screaming at me through the screen, and they're saying, "Yeah, that's all fine, but that's Finland. It'll never work here." That's like we've got so many negative teachers that think that it won't work in our specific context. And then the other thing that South African teachers often say is, "Yeah, but that's Finland. That's everything is amazing in Finland. Finland is such a great country." And I always challenge when I speak to international guests, like, okay, tell us the bad things. Like, it can't just be all good and great. So I remember being in Finland last year and asking the teachers, like, what don't you like about the Finnish education system? And that's maybe something that's worth exploring.
What I don't like, what I don't like at the moment is that there are some teachers who are not really using their autonomy the right way. And especially when our curriculum changed and when students or learners participation, how you said here, learners participation came like very strongly to our curriculum. So that concept was totally misunderstood by some people. And like today when I had the lecture, I was telling an example, quite a rough example about like, you don't throw a child who cannot swim into a pool and say, find your own way. And sometimes now what I see in our educational system, that there are, in terms of participation, in terms of being like supporting child-led education, children are thrown to do projects, so that they do a project, but they have like no idea what they are doing, and then they are just like hanging around. And then if you are finding your problem, so come to see us. And there are those children who can't really, which don't have skills to work that way, which don't have self-regulation skills, and also those skills are something that need to be taught to children. So that is something that bothers me, and where our system is going, that when we are going to some weird totally open space system and teachers are not working teachers anymore, but just facilitators.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable, because especially now in our country there's this drive towards project-based learning, which I think is fine, but we're misunderstanding what the responsibilities of the teacher is. So I hear what you're saying is that Finland has given their teachers this autonomy and this freedom, but immediately with that comes a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
And if you don't have the responsibility, you don't take the responsibility, or you're not serious about it, you can easily just go slack and say, well, the kids have got interest, just let them study whatever they're interested in.
Yeah. And like today on my lecture, I was talking about like when doing those projects, we first have to fulfill children's these lower order cognitive skills, and so they need to remember and understand the concepts before they can start to apply or evaluate or create something new. So that is like, it's not just that you can straightly go to create something new, but teachers are still needed. We need to structure children's work. First we need to create them opportunities to learn concepts and understand what they are. And once they understand the content, once they understand the main concepts, then they can start to be creative and start and applying those concepts and be creative and create like animation projects, what you just saw today, or creating a movie, and like how do we see these concepts in our own lives.
Creativity can't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
If you don't have pieces to work with in
Yeah.
creativity, you can't put them together.
Yeah.
So those building blocks, the content remains
Yeah.
king,
Yeah.
and then out of that you can build into evaluation,
Yeah.
synthesis,
Yeah.
creation. But you just mentioned a very exciting project that you did, and you shared it with the lecture today with the fourth year students, of one of the projects that you did with the grade 5s. And I would really love it if you can explain to us what that project is, and maybe how South African teachers can emulate a project like this.
Which one you mean?
Let's do well, there's two. This is how cool it is. The one was that the learners did stop animation.
Yeah.
Remember, this is grade 5
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
that created stop animation
Yeah.
movies, and then the other one is a 60-minute full movie that
Yeah.
the class produced together. Maybe touch on both.
Maybe I'll start with the movie one.
Okay.
So it was a movie that related to equity of people. So we started by studying the concept of equity. Do I say it properly?
Yeah, equality and equity.
Equity. Okay. This is like when speaking English is the second language.
Well, that's cool
Like-
because both of
Yeah.
our second languages
Yeah.
are English, and that makes for a lot of comedy on this show,
Yeah.
for sure.
But anyway, so how are we people equal in our society? And we started from the concept, how it's defined in our law, and then we started to figure it out how it has been like throughout history. And for example, in ancient Egypt, where like slaves had like no rights, and then there was this one guy, Pharaoh, or how you say it in English,
Yeah.
so leading the and like how people were treated so very differently. And then we started to, once we understood the concept, we started to think about how children see what are the how people are people treated as equals in our society, and which are the kind of like phenomena that supports that, and which are something that prevents that. And then they wrote a storyline. We wrote a story. We used 3 weeks for writing.
Okay.
On the first week, they
Is that the entire school day you spend on writing? Or?
History and Finnish language.
Okay, so when that's the on the timetable,
Yeah.
then you use the
Yeah.
actual classroom time
Yeah.
to write the script. And is that then the individual child writes their own script, or is it group work?
At the beginning, every child worked individually. They wrote a manuscript, and their suggestion for a manuscript.
How big is this manuscript?
It was. They varied from like 3 pages up to 15 pages or something.
And that was their choice. How?
Yeah.
Okay.
How it depended how into the topic they were.
And I just want to remind the viewers of the show that this is 11-year-old children.
Yeah.
So they're 11, and
They're
they
11.
do this as their project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So first, every child wrote an individual manuscript, and we used 3 weeks time for that. And then they got some feedback from me, and then they were able to kind of like work with it 1 more week. After that. At that time they were sitting in table groups, so that there were 4 kids in one table group, and then they shared their stories in their table group, and they picked up one story that they thought that kind of like presented the best the idea of people being equal, and which worked as a manuscript.
And you as a teacher had no say on which one of those manuscripts they chose.
No.
So in the group of 4, they decided together democratically, or just agreed that we think this is the best manuscript that represents our situation.
And then, because we had 6 groups, so we ended up having 6 stories. So then I read all those 6 stories to the kids, and then they made an analysis. Like, what was the main character, what was the context, what was the goal, and what was the problem, and what was the goal of the story. And then what were the kind of like phenomena that prevented equity to happen, and what supported, so supporters and opponents, and then how the story ended. So they made an analysis of 6 stories, and then we went through the analysis, and we figured out how those stories actually kind of like work together. And then what I did then, I kind of summarized the analysis, and I kind of connected those parts of the stories that they had created, and then we finally get manuscript.
So so you ended up with one manuscript. So it's basically in South Africa we talk about potjiekos. It's you put everything into one pot.
Yes.
So it's everybody's contribution that led to a final product. One final product.
And I honestly, I only wrote like the first 2-3 lines to make the stories to start nicely. That was the only thing that I was put to that story, but everything else was based on children's ideas.
So it's such a collaborative space. Yeah. Everybody has the opportunity to participate and sees their voice heard within the product.
Yes, and even though as children thought that even though their story wasn't chosen to be one of those 6, still they felt that their ideas were in the story because they connected it with each other like many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the manuscript was ready and kids were able to read it through, they were able to pick up 3 roles they would like to play, and then I kind of
the casting. So every child could decide, they could list their top 3 roles that they wanted to play in the movie.
Yeah, and there were like 2 kids who wanted to have the same roles, and then what we did that we split one role so to 2 parts, and we kind of created a new character. But everybody was happy. Everybody got a role, and they were happy about their roles. And then we filmed the movie, and there was even my car, and I was driving the car in the movie. So they kind of signed me, the manuscripted me in driving my car in that movie. It was so much fun.
So literally everybody participated, even the teacher.
Even I and my dirty car. And then so we filmed the movie, and it ended up being a 60-minute movie, and then we asked parents to come to school to see the movie.
So you then viewed the movie to the parents.
Yes.
Okay.
And in 1 month we are having that kind of homeschool, an official homeschool evening.
So I just want to clarify this, because in South Africa homeschooling refers to a different concept. So it would be a parents' evening. So when the parents come to the school to see what is done at school, is that what a homeschool evening would be?
Yeah. Or actually, then it's going to be one Saturday.
Okay.
So did I talk about it? So homeschool evening was so that I just invited parents to come to school, and it was just something extra. I wanted to invite them, and kids were there, and we did some extra hours, but just because it's worth doing it, because you connect to parents, and parents are so happy to see all those like movies. But then, we are having this whole homeschool day. It's Saturday. So once per year we work one Saturday, and it's kind of a Saturday that we collect money, so that all the people living close to the area can come to school, and there's like people are selling stuff there, and now we are selling tickets to our movie, so we are collecting money for the classroom by that way, and then because we are doing a trip next autumn, so by that way.
So you're self-funding the trip that your class is going on.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing here, this is such a integrated approach, because you've got so many elements of different subjects all being used within one product, because this isn't just a social sciences assignment.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely brilliant, because you've got the sciences in there, you've got art in there, you've got technology in there, and even entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So in one project, you are hitting the notes in so many different valuable skills for these kids.
You would say maybe 21st century skills. We talk from transversal competencies, but exactly.
That's what it comes down to. So, and like you rightfully said, it's there's content. They need to know what inequality is and what social justice is and things. So they get to learn the content, but then they get to apply it in a context that's authentic to them. Because I had the opportunity to see a few minutes of this movie, because you played it during the lecture today, and it's amazing, because all of the kids, they literally filmed it at the school, and it's in the context of where these kids live. So it's so much more meaningful to them than just learning about some content in a textbook and just reading the story. They'll never forget the project that they were in.
And I really had so much fun. So doing it with the kids.
Well, you had fun, and the kids had fun, and everybody just had fun. And nobody really understood that they were learning whilst having fun. So that's ideal. We actually have got so much value just from the first few minutes of this conversation. But I want to maybe pivot a bit and chat about you as a super teacher. So in Finland, teaching is regarded as one of the best possible professions to go into, where in South Africa that's not necessarily the case. We find that in South Africa teachers end up in teaching. You don't necessarily, very few people know from the age of 3 I'm going to be a teacher, and then they go and study teaching. That doesn't seem to be the discourse around teaching in South Africa. But in Finland, what is the case? And specifically for you, why did you decide to become a teacher?
First of all, I was never supposed to be a teacher. Everybody asked me that, are you going to be a teacher because your parents are? And of course you are saying, no, I'm not.
Because you know exactly what teaching entails.
But when I was in upper secondary school and on the 3rd grade in upper secondary school, I realized that actually I want to be a teacher. You
can't run away from your destiny, it's in the genes.
Yeah, it's in genes, and it's where my passion is. And so I applied for the University of Joensuu at that time, and I was lucky to get in when I was 19. And I graduated at the age of 23, and since that I've been a happy teacher.
So you said a very interesting thing, and I want to try and quote the words that you said. You were lucky to get in.
Yes.
Now that will never be said from a South African teacher, because teaching, if we apply for teaching, it's almost assumed that you're going to get in. It's one of the easiest qualifications to qualify for in South Africa. In Finland, I guess that's not the case.
It's actually as difficult as becoming a lawyer or doctor to become a teacher.
So it's not just, I don't know what I want to be, let me go and try and be a teacher. You actually have to apply, and it's as difficult to become a teacher than it is to become a medical doctor.
Yeah. Like, it used to be so that, for example, to the University of Helsinki, we have had like 1,300 applicants, and we can take only like 120 in.
Okay. So, so teaching is regarded as a worthwhile profession and a dignified profession in Finland.
Yes.
And I think that plays a major role as well in the success of the Finnish education system. So, okay, so then you studied teaching. I think this is one thing that I would like to know. Everybody says you need a minimum of a master's degree to qualify to be a teacher. Is this the truth?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
You need a master's degree to be a teacher in Finland. Now, I taught a module for first year students, and we do a comparison between the South African education system and the Finnish education system, and we tell them all of these things. But one thing that I'm very reluctant to advise our country on is we should adapt or adopt the Finnish education model, because there are so many nuances and so many differences between the South African context, whatever that word means, but the South African situation, and what happens in Finland. I mean, for one thing, the South African population is about 57 million people, where in Finland, if I understand it correctly, is about 5 million people. So that's got an influence at the end of the day. South Africa is a multicultural country. I mean, we're so diverse. Where in Finland, that's not necessarily the case. I'm not saying you're not diverse, but the degree of diversity in Finland. One of the biggest challenges we have in South Africa for teachers is learning how to teach in a multicultural classroom. So copy and pasting the Finnish model onto a South African model. Do you think there's value in doing that?
You can never transfer any like practices as they are from one side to another side, because they're always like, now I go to theory of practice architectures, but like there are always these arrangements like cultural discursive elements, like we have different kind of sayings, how we talk from things, these material economical differences, like which have an impact on how we actually can do things in different contexts. And then there are these political, social political arrangements, meaning like these relatings, how people relate to each other, and especially like Finland and South Africa, especially when it comes to relatings, like this huge autonomy that we in Finland have, and not having centralized. We have this decentralized system, and you having very centralized system. So you cannot transfer one system to another place, but still we can find certain good ways which could be like reinvented. In your context, and for example, Funda Ojapolo School is a good example. So you have reinvented our teacher training school, and you have turned it to your model, but it's the same.
I think just to give some context to the audience here, the University of Johannesburg on the Soweto campus has got a training school called Funda Ujabule School, where the students actually do their teaching practice in the school from their first year, almost like a academic hospital would take in medical students and then train them in the hospital for their degree. Same thing happens at the University of Johannesburg, where the students get to teach in an actual functional school from their first year up until their fourth year. And this is a model that is used in Finland for teacher education.
Yes. Of course, the way how you use it is a bit different now once I've been able to work there as well and see how it works. But anyway, the basic idea is the same, kind of like it's the nutshell that you have brought from Finland to. So
the concept is transferable, but that doesn't mean we can do the processes exactly like you do it, because we've got our own nuances and own specific context that our teachers. So basically what we're saying is we've got our education system in South Africa. Yeah. It's not perfect. By all means, it's not perfect, but we've come this far. We have to keep on iterating, keep on designing, and work and get the best possible education system for South Africa.
Yeah. But then you can get some nice elements that could also work. There are certain elements, for example, like teachers being educated to masters, or having the master's thesis, and be like real academics. So
and I think that's one area, and I think largely due to our history and the inequality in education that we had, is our current cohort of teachers that are actually in schools have got these vast differences within their education, their tertiary education, and if we get to a level where we can at least, let's say we just start with every teacher should have an honors degree. It's one extra year, it's one extra year of rigor. And what we're missing from our in-practice teachers, our in-service teachers, is a focus on research. We are so focused on pedagogy and methodology and teaching, but I haven't met many teachers who are adamant and passionate about researching their own teaching. Where in my experience, the few teachers that I interviewed when I was in Finland, that's not the case, where research is a major focus of your practice. And maybe you'd like to elaborate on that.
Or maybe research itself is kind of like for us who work in teacher training schools, we are very into research, but kind of what we have is to educate Finnish teachers as professionals who can use methods that comes out of research in order to develop their own teaching, and like they don't necessarily need to do research themselves, but they can use like various kinds of analysis from like data they get from just children's tests or whatever. So in order to develop their own teaching through academic means.
So it's not necessarily formalized research in publication for academic journals, but it's doing action research. It's being able to use qualitative and quantitative analysis methods to improve, or first of all get the data from your class, and then improve your own teaching.
You plan, then you implement it, you observe what's happening, you reflect it, and then you make another round in order to improve. And so exactly work in action research spiral. You don't necessarily collect official data, you don't need to ask official permissions from anyone, but you keep on developing your own work in this action research cycle.
Thank you so much for that. I think there's so much value in just this conversation with you. I think I'm going to fly through to Finland and just have a follow-up conversation with you. But before we end this episode, we typically end off with our guests asking a few questions. Now, I started off calling it quick fire questions.
Oh my goodness.
But it never ever sticks with quick fire questions because there's so much to elaborate on. So I'm just calling it now for the end, just ending off with questions that you don't know of, unprepared questions. So let's get ready for this one. Okay, on the spot, tell me, what is your superpower?
Dance.
Please tell us about this. Elaborate on that. Why would you say dance is your superpower?
Because I get so much energy for dancing.
Okay.
And when I go to dance, and I forget my work completely, and that's how I load my batteries.
Oh, okay. Is there a way where you use your dance in your teaching?
sometimes, and what just happened the other week was that I got a new student to my classroom, and then there was some funny day at school, and there was some music going on, and I started to dance, and the new kid in my classroom stared at me and said, "I've never seen a teacher who dances." Like, okay, welcome to my classroom.
Oh, wonderful, that's amazing. I think
but actually that's about like being it also about being passionate and being excited and being who you are, about being like a me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That being authentically yourself, allowing yourself to be an actual human being, because we think teachers are these robots you have to switch off at the end of the day. But you're an actual human with your own interests, and you love dancing, and that spills over into the classroom, and the kids suddenly realize this is another human teaching me, aiding in building a relationship. I want you to tell me a story of your favorite teacher. When you were at school, who was your favorite teacher? You don't necessarily have to mention a name, but what about that teacher of yours stood out for you?
Oh, there was a teacher who was teaching religion, and she was interested in us. She wasn't probably the best teacher, like if you measure her teaching, what kind of new methods she used, or she was quite traditional. But she was keen on what was going on in our lives, and the way how she was there, and she was interested in us, asking how are you doing, seeing like, okay, now you're sad. So
she took an interest in you as an individual, and that stuck with you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, next one.
Yeah.
You get to build the school. You're in charge. The school is totally up to you. You've got no restrictions. So all the resources to your disposal. What would the school look like? Tell us about the school that you would build.
Oh my goodness. It would look like pretty much like Viki, you've been there.
The Viki school, yes.
Yeah, because I still would like to have own classrooms, because I believe that each child needs to have their own space. They need to have their own teacher, own spot where to come in the morning. And in Viki we have this lobby area, and then so we call these cells. But you could call them like wings. There's the big corridor, and then there are these wings, and in each wing we have 3 classrooms. There's this big lobby area, and then there's a small room. I would have even more of those. How I would Viki would be that we would have even more of those small rooms. I would decorate them like having more soft materials and tables, which would be easier to kind of like to transfer to. Like sometimes we are working in pairs, sometimes in groups, so that because we have those. In the market you can find those, but in Viki we don't have. So I would like to have new furniture. But kind of like how Viki is built is something that I like, so that there are proper walls, and then there would
like
be
solid walls,
and then we just have more of those spaces where we could, like when the children do group work. So that we could like arrange kids to do like, okay, this is your minor spot to do group work, and like in the lobby area, so that I could see those group working areas from the lobby, but there would be like that kind of places where like 6 kids could be like discussing properly and not being disturbed by other groups. So that's how I would build my school.
I would definitely encourage anybody to go and check out the Viki School's website, and go just even look at the architecture and the way in which the building is laid out. It was the first school that I visited when I went to Finland in last year, and I'm absolutely in love with the layout of the school and just the culture of the school. So everybody, I'll put it in the description of this video, and for the podcast we'll share it on all social media platforms. Go check the website of the Viki School. That's very, very cool. Reetta, we're running out of time, but I want to do two more. You already spoke about dance, and in the car on the way here, when the two of us had a chat, you mentioned that you love doing dance, and that's the way in which you recharge your batteries. But I'm borrowing this from the Teachers on Fire podcast. This is one thing that he asks his guests, and I absolutely love this thing. Is he asks his guests about Netflix, and currently what series or movie they're watching on Netflix. It doesn't have to be Netflix, but what television or what movies are you consuming, if you're doing it at all?
This is so embarrassing. I was an old English series called Heartbeat.
Heartbeat?
Yes.
Okay. Is it on Netflix or is it on which platform?
You can't find it on Netflix.
So is it something on Finnish TV that you?
Yeah, but it's.
Well, I have to go check it. What's it
You
called?
have to go to check what is heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
Yes.
Okay, that's everybody's homework for this episode. We have to go and figure out, because now I want to know why you're so embarrassed about it. Is it a comedy? Is it?
It's oh my goodness. Yeah, just go and see.
Okay, well there we go. We'll definitely go and do that.
Yeah.
Now, I believe firmly that being a super teacher means you're part of a community.
Yes.
We don't know everything. You can't know everything, but we surround ourselves with competent peers. We basically like the Avengers. Everybody's got their own superpower, but you team up with other superheroes that's got their own unique powers. And one place to do that is on social media platforms. And I know you're very active on Instagram and on Facebook as well. So please go and follow Reetta there. We'll also share all the links to Reetta's social media so that everybody can go check that out. But who, in your opinion, should we go and follow on social media?
In terms of education.
It could be in education or anybody else, anybody that you feel we can go and learn from.
Oh my goodness, nice. This is a tough one. I would like to suggest my colleague.
Perfect. Me. Who's this?
Any Viki teacher.
Any one of the colleagues at
any
the
one of the
Viki school.
colleagues. Yeah, I appreciate all my colleagues. I can't name just one.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that I have a super. I have only colleagues who are all super teachers.
That's so in the Finnish spirit, that answer, and I didn't expect anything else from you. And I agree with you. I've had the opportunity and really the privilege to meet many of your colleagues and work with many of your colleagues as well, and I can agree. Finland is seen as I almost want to say the epitome of education systems, and it's because of their teachers. But I've experienced it firsthand, and it really is the truth. If you ever have the opportunity to spend time with a Finnish teacher, like I could for the last 2 hours of my life, grab those opportunities.
Yes.
But thank you very much for taking the time to appear on this show.
Thank you so much, and thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to another person who is as passionate as I am when it comes to teaching. So I think what is something that we have in common is passion for teaching, and that is our superpower as well.
I agree, and we have to invoke that and try and ignite that with all of our colleagues. Because imagine what can happen if there's a super teacher in each and every classroom. Yes. And with that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time for viewing this, being part of the audience, but being part of the super teacher community and taking time to actually spend time watching videos like this, listening to podcasts like this. This means nothing if there isn't an audience that supports this. So thank you very much. If you like what we do here, be sure to give us a thumbs up, rate us on all of the platforms, subscribe, share it with your friends so that we can have a super teacher in each and every classroom.